Hello, friends, and welcome to the Nature Therapy Online podcast. So, this is a mini podcast for Denny in Pennsylvania. So, this is the first one that I've published online. I have done some other mini podcasts for my Patreon supporters, but I've sent those to them directly and kept them private because they asked for quite specific things, and I figured it was quite perhaps confusing to publish them live. So for anybody who is interested in having your own personalized podcast about nature connection every 3 months, you can sign up at patreon.com/nature therapy online. And yes, so I will publish them sometimes, and sometimes, as I say, they'll be private. But I'm publishing this one because it feels quite universal. So it's a really nice question that Denny has asked. So if you just give me a moment, I'm going to read you Denny's request. So Denny says, "For my winter video, I would like to request something along the line of seeing the world as I look through the branches of a tree. I have a lovely large oak outside my bedroom window, and now that the leaves are mostly gone, I am able to admire her structural beauty and see both the sun and the moon through her, as well as squirrels scurrying up and down. When the sky is clear, I am able to get a good look at the stars. This view is where I start and end my day, and it makes me feel at peace. I would like to pay more attention to my oak and perhaps write about how she moves through the seasons. And I would also like to give her a name." So I really like this, Denny. You're going to have to excuse me a moment because my dog is digging as he often does when I record podcasts. There we go. Euro is comfortable. That's great. So thanks for this, Denny. I think it's a really lovely thing to make a mini podcast on, and I think the trees that we have around us, whether they're in our gardens or we can see them from our window, can really become a part of our lives. We can spend time just sitting and gazing, and sometimes not even paying that much attention to the tree, but just having our eyes resting on it, or listening to the sound of the leaves in the summer. They really can become a part of our lives. But what I like about your request is that it sounds like you really have quite a deliberate connection. It's not so casual. It sounds like you really appreciate the beauty of this tree. So I've got a few ideas. I scribbled down a few notes when I read it. And the first thing I would suggest is to sketch the gaps between the branches. So take a pencil, and instead of trying to draw the shape of the tree itself, to have a look at any gaps that appear between the branches and draw those gaps. So you might want to use this as a way of sketching the whole tree, or you might just want to take the shapes and see what shapes you can make from those gaps, and be curious. It sounds like you are connecting with the sky quite a lot through the gaps in these trees. So I wonder what that might bring up for you, and how you might get to deepen your sense of the tree, or your knowing of the tree, by paying more attention to those gaps. So this is something a little exercise I was introduced to through the 10 Directions course, which many of you know I'm a tutor on. But when I was a student there, it was one of the tasks, and still is, I think. And I loved it because I'm not an artist, and I think whenever I've tried to sketch a tree before, I've just been putting my attention on the branches themselves. And interestingly, I ended up with a much better looking tree by not putting my focus on the branches and the boughs, but actually putting the focus on the gaps. So try that, Denny, and let me know how you get on. It probably won't be a surprise, my second suggestion. So I would suggest looking for some old folk tales featuring oak trees, and checking out some folklore. And on that note, maybe look into local folklore. There might be some from around the Pennsylvania area. And of course, this applies to anybody listening. If you want to, get to know a tree a little deeper, then, apply that to your area and see what reveals, see what ideas, our ancestors and the people of the past have come up with through storytelling, because very often that's what storytelling is sharing. It's that connection to nature from people in the past, So that's a second suggestion. I would also take a pen and some paper. I know you're a writer, Denny, so this will, probably come a little quite easily to you. So I would sit down, watch the tree, and without overthinking, write down a list of words without editing, without overthinking it, without overthinking it. Write down a list of words about how the tree makes you feel, and then write down another list of words about the energy that the tree seems to provoke for you. You can use the term energy or the character of the tree, whatever that is. So just sit down and look and see what's coming to me. What do I feel? And also what's the character or the energy of the tree? And just write every word that comes in. Don't overthink it. Just put it down, and then when you've written the words, quickly come back to them and have a look and see what words are there, and perhaps looking at this list of words and also looking at the gaps between the trees, and if you decide to read some old tales, hopefully something will come up for you there, in terms of a name. If you wanted to make a name, I think even if your name doesn't come out of this, you will still get to know your tree a little bit better through doing these exercises. But you might want to have fun with naming your tree by looking at the gaps. So maybe some of the gaps have the shapes of letters, and that could be the first letter, and something will naturally come to you. Maybe you can see, I don't know, the letter B. Maybe one of the shapes looks like a letter E. I don't know, see if anything comes there. Or if not, look at your words. Maybe one of the words feels like the name of the tree itself, or maybe it inspires the name. And the last thing I would like to suggest, although there's probably all kinds of things you can do. Well, I know there is, but it's a mini podcast today. I could probably make a full hour on this actually, but I'm going to keep it short and hopefully sweet. So take a series of photos throughout the next year at different seasons and pull them together and see the details of how she looks at different stages of the year, and get to know how she appears and how she feels to you when she's in the depth of summer. There's something about putting photographs next to each other and not just relying on our memories. And of course I guess you've probably got some photos of this tree already, but it'd be quite nice to take some from the same angle, and to compare them. And of course you can do it from a series of photographs from different angles, but it would be nice to have series of photographs, kind of linked together. So some, several from, I don't know, from the east of the tree, several from the west. You get the picture. And yeah, that's a bit more of a long-term one, but something to keep you busy and see if you can make a collage, what the collage looks like this time next year. And there you go. So that's what I would suggest for you, Denny. Thanks again for such a lovely suggestion and a lovely request. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for being a patron on the podcast. And that leads me to my final little plug. So if you are listening and you would like me to record every 3 months an episode especially for you like this, where you get to choose the theme, you write to me, you tell me what you want me to make a podcast about, and I make a podcast especially for you. It's nature themed. It is an ecotherapy podcast. So within that world and that realm, and I'll make your podcast. And you can sign up for these at patreon.com/nature therapy online, and you can check out my general website at naturetherapyonline.net. So thanks a lot for tuning in, folks. Thanks a lot, Denny, for being so supportive and for sending such a lovely suggestion. And I hope you enjoyed the podcast, folks, and I will speak to you again on the main episode in a few weeks. So take care for now, and bye-bye.